Clog TV.
Beyond the policy.
You're welcome back to the KOKO Digest Morning Show. If you are just tuning in, this is the KOKO Digest Morning Show, and we are about to have the main discussion. Today's topic is about mental health and substance abuse, and with me here, I have a very dignified member of society in the person of Mr. Abishai Anlima, who is a neuropsychologist. So I'm going to read a little bit of his profile to you so you get an understanding of who he is. So Abishai Anlima is a licensed consultant who is also a clinical neuropsychologist on very high demand and defies categorization. Okay. He pursued clinical psychology from the University of Ghana and currently practices as a clinical psychologist, researcher, and lecturer. Following his passion for mental health, Abishai supported and became the head of Friends of Mental Health, an NGO that focuses on seeking funds to support mental health in Ghana. Furthermore, he has had numerous clinical experiences working in the Kolibu Teaching Hospital. So let's meet Mr. Abishai Anlima. Hello, Doc.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us here.
A pleasure.
So you are a neuropsychologist. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What's a neuropsychologist? I don't even think I've heard of it. Even. Yes.
Okay. So people are very much aware of neurologists. They handle the brain and all that. They know about clinical psychology and they work on the mind.
Yes.
So clinical neuropsychology is an interplay between neurology and clinical psychology.
Okay.
So we work on both the brain and the mind.
The mind.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That was very, very interesting to know. So yes, my cherished viewers, please remember to send in your comments, your questions to our live stream on Facebook and YouTube. And our WhatsApp number is displayed on your screens, and you can send your comments and questions there. And along the interview, our phone lines would also be opened for you to send to call for your questions, and then they'll be answered here by our doctor. So yes, mental health. What is mental health? I mean, the term is self-explanatory, but from the professional perspective, what is mental health?
Okay, so when we say mental health, we are referring to a person's overall well-being that allows you to cope effectively with the demands of life. There is so much pressure in life, and everything in life, whether positive or negative, whether good or bad, impacts on us. But our mental health will determine the extent to which we are able to handle the normal demands or stresses of life, which include how we relate with others, education, our work, and even impacting our physical health as well.
So what's the difference between the psychiatric, field and the psychological field?
Okay, so the psychiatrists are trained to use medicines to handle virtually every mental health issue. So for example, a lady was in a relationship, there is a broken heart issue, you give her medicine so she can be able to recover. Someone has anxiety, medicine comes in. But psychologists believe that medicines alone does not do the job. So they tend to work with you, look at your lifestyle, your thinking pattern, so that you can be able to get readjusted.
Okay. So that was good to know. So what are some of the common mental health disorders that we have? Or when we say, let me even start properly. When we say a mental health disorder, what do we mean?
Okay, so when we say a mental health disorder, we mean that someone has gone through a series of mental health challenges that has gone to the extent that it's affecting your cognitive functioning, or it's affecting how you relate with others, it's affecting how you are able to function in your job, or it even becomes so distressing to others around you. Then we see there is a mental health disorder.
So if something affects your brain, does that translate into a mental health or disorder, or it's when something affects your mind that it becomes a mental health disorder?
Okay, so that brings about a dichotomy between neurology and clinical psychology. So, for example, someone could be involved in an accident. There could be some sort of hemorrhage or damage to a part of the brain. So we do some surgery, we correct the problem. Now, you see, the brain is more like the hardware, and the mind is more like the software.
Software, yes.
So once the hardware is intact, the software must be able to work to make it function. So what happens is that once there is a damage to a part of the brain, it doesn't necessarily cause a mental health disorder. So someone could have a tumor. We have to remove it surgically. Yes. Sometimes some few medications can be able to come in at a point. The bottom line here is the moment this issue affecting the brain is affecting the person cognitively, how they function socially, occupationally, then we say there is a mental health disorder.
Okay, so it could be that, let's say even with a tumor premise, maybe something is taken out and then where the tumor appeared is something that's very vital to a part of, the person's cognitive function. So that would cause. Okay. Yes. Okay. So sometimes we can have even the physical things happening to the brain causing mental health. Yes, because sometimes we find that, let's say, our veteran soldiers or something, when they come back from peacekeeping and maybe they've gone through some injury, in addition to all the gory things that happen on field, you realize that they come back with this. Sometimes some of them are very aggressive or very angry, or they tend to show these traits that maybe you, who is a loved one, before the person went, this was not how they were. So that's why I decided to ask something like that.
Fact, most of these veterans are going through what you call PTSD.
Okay, yes. So we will be coming to that too. So yes, let's get into the mental health disorders. You've already defined. So what are some of the common mental health disorders?
Okay, so the common ones we are seeing in Ghana, depression, anxiety disorders. We have different kinds of anxiety disorders. We have a bipolar, the PTSD I mentioned. Some are battling with schizophrenia. Others are going through personality disorders. Including those who are having narcissistic traits as well, which affects others more often. A number of people are going through some form of psychosis, whereby they are hallucinating, going through delusions. So we call it our paranoid delusional disorder. And a number of people are also going through substance use disorders and addiction as well.
Okay, we'll come to that too. So can you give us a little bit about the statistics, because I think the Mental Health Authority has also come out with an article some time back. So can you touch on that for us a little?
Okay, so let me talk about the mental health article you just mentioned. So maybe let me start with the world and I'll come to Ghana. So the whole world over, about 1 billion people, 1 billion people are living with mental health disorders. And out of this 1 billion, only 30% are getting treatment. 70% no treatment for them. It's either because the resources are not available or they are not going because of stigma and discrimination. Then WHO estimates that worldwide, it's as if 1 out of every 7 persons is going through a mental health disorder or challenge. And in a lifetime, 1 out of 3 persons would have a mental health challenge at some point in their life. When you come down to Ghana, the mental health, I think it was done by Ghana Health Service or Ministry of Health. And they came to realize that 10% of Ghanaians are going through mental health challenges, serious ones. But 41% are going through mental health distress, or what you call psychological distress. Let me just explain.
We need the difference.
So the 41% of Ghanaians going through some form of mental health distress, it's like they are going through some issues in life that is affecting their mental health. But we wouldn't directly say they are going through a mental health disorder. But for 10%, the distress has become so profound that they don't even have any more coping abilities. It's become so severe that they can't function any longer. So that's the 10% we are having. That's very serious.
Yes, that's true. So some of these disorders, can they be genetic?
Okay, so the causes, some are due to genetic factors. Some too are due to lifestyle factors. Some are due to our thought processes. The way we interpret issues. Let me give you an example. we had cases where two friends, ladies, they were dating and they both had a fallout of relationship. So as we often call broken hearts. Now, one girl develops severe depression and she begins to cut herself, we call it a self-harm, and she wants to die. The other girl is fine. They've both been through depression, but the thought processes, the way they interpret the events, could either impact your mental health or bring about a mental disorder in a person. So thought also play a key role too.
So how long or let me find it, I'll find it. So what's the severity, or how do you measure the severity before you call a mental health distress a disorder?
That's good. Okay, so one issue is we have a manual. A manual we use to diagnose mental disorders. And each one has some specifics you are looking for. The bottom line here is, once a person is going through a distress, and it becomes so distressing that they can't function socially, they can't function occupationally, as in they can't work. So maybe there is a manager of a company, because of the distress they are going through, they can't go to work anymore. They are just in their home. Some are going through like an OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and they just can't go to work any longer. So the moment it gets to the point where you can't function at work, you can't function socially, even your memory is impaired, attention, concentration, then we say it's a disorder. We really have to come in at all costs.
So is there a time frame, like let's say my heart got broken in January, then we are in August, so now it's a disorder. Maybe in March it wasn't a disorder, but now we are in August and my heart is still broken, then it's a disorder. Is there something like that?
Okay, yes, you are right. So we have time frames we also use, but we don't always rely only on the time frame. Let's take depression, for example. Some experts will look at 2 weeks. Some will look at about 6 months, depending on the symptoms we are seeing and how severe they are. But the moment we are realizing that whether it's about 2 weeks, or whether it's about a month interval, and realize that the occupational functioning, social functioning, academic progress, cognitive function, they are so low to the ground, then we have to come in to give you an intervention before something worse happens.
Okay. That's, wow. I'm learning a lot here, and I'm sure you are too. So I'm waiting for your questions and your comments and your calls as well. The phone lines will be opened very soon so that you can call and ask our doctor here very, very important questions. I'm sure questions are bugging you, yes. So, yes, about all of the mental health issues again, aside some being genetic, like the schizophrenia and bipolar disorders, the ones, let's talk about the ones that are acquired from the lifestyle perspective.
Okay, so lifestyle perspective, we could talk of substance abuse being a major factor, and some other forms of addiction like pornography, gambling, and the others.
Okay, so if something like the heartbreak, it can cause a disorder, but we haven't mentioned that as some of the lifestyle things. So can we say maybe natural phenomenon in life too? Because there could be a very high depression rate among the youth right now because of the levels of unemployment that we are facing at the moment. Could that also be, categorized into something, one of the causes?
I love that. And one thing we've realized as clinical neuropsychologists is that events themselves, occurrences themselves, whether they are positive or negative, does not determine mental disorders. It's about how the interpretations we give to it, our thought processes, the choice or decisions we make when those things happen. So the two ladies I was speaking of, they are both friends. They both have a breakup within the same time. But one gets so depressed. The one who was depressed, when I did this sort of interviewing, I came to realize that she had this perception that, hey, if my guy leaves me, then I'm dead. I'll be so lonely. My world has come to an end. You see, once you have these thought processes, it just breaks you down. But the one who was okay said, oh, anyway, there are more fishes in the sea. I'll be able to get... One other important thing to note is that let's use what you call the ice clay phenomenon. You see, if you put ice in a bucket, maybe around 12 p.m., the sun is very high in the sky. In the sun, it will melt. But this same sun, you mold some clay into an object. The sun hardens it. So the sun becomes a common factor. But it's about how you adapt to it. That will show whether it is going to strengthen you or break you. So my grandmom used to say that adversities have two effects. While it breaks some men, it causes other men to break records.
But then I could also argue that based on the composition of both examples that you've used, because we cannot expect ice to do anything else but melt in the sun. And we cannot expect clay, wet clay to also be anything other than to dry, because the sun would absorb all the moisture out of it. And I'm sure even the ice, if it's in the sun longer, it would evaporate. So based on
their composition.
Yes, so maybe these two girls, maybe one person, her heart is soft, so that's why she fell into such a deep depression that she wanted to die and was self-harming. Yes, so about self-harm, when do we start to define that as self-harm? Because sometimes there are even talks about even self-sabotage and things like that with the mental health disorders, where maybe, let's say I'm venturing into a new field of work and I'm so anxious about the fact that maybe I'd have no idea what I'm doing. So because of the anxiety, I would rather not, and then miss out on a very important opportunity. When do we start to define these things as self-harm or self-sabotage?
That's good. Just before answering that, let me give a little bit touch on what we said earlier about the composition, that ice will always be ice, clay will always be clay. So when it comes to we human beings, we are not destined to be entirely ice or clay. It depends on what you make yourself. So the question is, what are you made of? Are you made of ice to melt in the sun, or are you made of clay? So the issue of resilience comes in. So if you know you have a soft heart, you could get some form of mental health support. So you develop a quality we call resilience. That helps a lot. Now to the self-harm question. Now, when do we say a particular thing going on is about self-harm or self-sabotage? Well, what we've realized through our experience and studies is that a number of people who are doing self-harm, some of them are aware that I want to harm myself. Others too are not aware they are harming themselves. I had a girl who had something we call dissociative identity disorder. It's like at one point she feels like she's a girl. At one point she feels like she's a crazy something outside. At another point she even feels she's a marine spirit and she behaves as such. And if you're not careful, you might say she's a witch, but it's a mental health condition. Now, the only way she's able to relieve herself, get some bit of solace, is to pick a knife or blade and cut herself, even with the ties, all the way to her private part.
Wow.
So to her, when she does that, she just gets some solace. Then she realizes that, oh, I'm alive, I'm within myself. But others decide that because I'm going through this pain, I want to just harm myself. So we look at those particular two differences.
So let's come back to the mental health disorders. I think we should expound a little bit on each. You mentioned that there are different types of anxiety. So if you can, expatiate on that for us a little.
Okay. So when it comes to anxiety, we have those who go through what we call generalized anxiety disorder. We call it generalized because they don't seem to be anxious over one particular thing. It's like they are always anxious over everything and nothing. So they wake up today, what if a tsunami comes to Ghana? And they are so anxious and they try to sleep, but they have one eye opened and they are doing impulsive shopping and try to do all kinds of things. They wake up and the next day, it could be raining and the way Accra could get flooded. What if my house, the rain breaks it down? And that alone gives them so much undue worry. They can't go to where they can't function, they can't sleep, and they start going through all kinds of things. We have those who go through what we call selective mutism. You see that often with kids. So this child can be in the house, they can play, go around, but the moment they're in a particular setting, it could be at church, in school, you give them something, they have to talk, they are just mute. They really want to speak, but they are just mute. It's also an anxiety disorder. We have those who have the specific anxiety disorders like agoraphobia, fear of being out in the public. Some have fear of needles, fear of dogs, fear of pretty ladies like you and the others.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So let's come to depression. I know a little bit about depression. There's clinical depression, functional depression. Can you give us a little detail on that too?
On that, okay. So yes, our manual keeps on changing when it comes to how we define depression.
Okay.
So currently with the DSM-5, which is the recent we are using, just review.
What is the DSM?
Oh, sorry. The DSM is Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders.
Okay.
So before we could say someone has depression, bipolar, anxiety, and the others, we categorize everything you are going through. Then we go to the DSM to help us be sure that what you are going through, we can categorize as depression or something. So when it comes to depression, currently, we have those going through major depression. And that's the depression we all know of. They become so sad, so moody. They are unable to become happy. They lose interest in things.
Yeah.
We have those who go through what you call a premenstrual depression.
Yes.
Just before their menstrual
period,
cycle
yes.
and the others, they go through that.
Preach. Yes.
We have those going through what you call the seasonal affective disorder.
Okay.
A form of depression, but it's as if the time zones for the seasons bring about a depression. In Ghana, here, some few that we are meeting and we are still working with. It's as if when we get to the rainy season when the sun is not really out, they just get depressed, moody, and the others. We get to the sunny moments and then they are sunny, so they move along with the seasons.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So when they say somebody is bipolar, I mean, people use that as more of a derogatory term, using it to insult people. But when we say someone is bipolar, what do we mean?
Okay. So in biology, bi means two.
Yes.
And polar means the
Ends of something.
Extreme ends of something. So bipolar means that you are going through two extreme forms of something.
Okay.
In the two extreme forms, we have depression at one end. So we call it bipolar depression.
Okay.
And at another point, they are going through mania. We call it bipolar mania.
Okay.
Just a bit of thought light on that. So this same person, at one point, they are so depressed, they are so sad, they've lost interest in almost everything. At another point, they switch and they seem to be so hyperactive. They are like buoyant. They have this idea. They want to transform the whole Ghana. They want to do this. Some even offer sex. They become so hypersexual and going up and down. Some even go into pornography and the others gambling and all forms of things. Okay. And some people can stay longer at the manic episode. Okay. Some also stay longer at the depressive episode. So that's the bipolar.
Okay. So let's touch on the manic part a little. When we say someone is manic, is it only just being hyperactive and doing everything, or there's more to it? Okay.
So the manic episode goes in so many ways. Even your speech can become manic. So when it gets to a particular state, those we've met so far in the manual, their speech becomes like pressured. They can talk too fast. They have racing thoughts. A lot of ideas are going through their mind. They can't even sleep at all because their adrenaline levels increases very, very high. Some either will eat a lot or they don't even have the egg to be able to eat. So that's what happens at the manic episode. That's just some few examples.
Yeah. So yes, let's come to ADHD. Right now on our social media, everything ADHD. And then there's also this neurotypical and neurodivergent. We'll come to that very soon too. So let's touch on ADHD. What is ADHD? What is it all about? And why is it all over social media? Everybody is diagnosing themselves of ADHD.
In fact, we get that a lot. Some people come to our facilities and they say, oh, I think I have ADHD. And they say, my friend told me, or
I saw it on some.
So ADHD means attention deficit or hyperactivity disorder. Okay. So when it comes to ADHD, some people we see have serious or severe attention deficit. Okay. They just can't pay attention. Okay. So at one moment they are focusing on this, and the next moment their mind is over here. So you see it affecting their academic performance, social interactions. You are talking to them within 1 minute.
They've moved to
somewhere else. Some of them too are also hyperactive. So at one moment they are running here, going here, climbing, going to open someone's door. In school, they just can't sit at one place. They are on this person's legs. They are going to the teacher, pushing someone and the others. And some too have the combined. Okay. We often diagnose them in children. Yeah. But once you grow and you don't get help, sometimes it could just fade away. Some will need intervention before it can be able to wait. But some grow into adulthood with the ADHD. Yes.
Okay. So when we say someone is neurodivergent or neurotypical, what does it mean?
Okay. So the neurotypical they often tend to be focused on just one aspect of a cognitive distortion and a mental health issue.
Okay.
The neurodivergent, at one point, they can be on one area or one aspect of a disorder. At another point, there's something else also coming in.
So the neurodivergents are basically people with multiple disorders or something like that?
Very well.
Okay. So yes, now autism. Is it a mental health disorder or it is just a disorder on its own?
Okay. So the issue of autism is very interesting. Very interesting because, yes, we see it as a mental disorder, but it is a blessing in disguise.
Okay.
So to start with, we often diagnose it in children. So around 2-3 years, the symptoms become profound. You realize that a child has problems with communication, social life, and things of that nature. They could have some typical behaviors as well, which is very unique to them. One thing about this autism is that although they are having deficits in their social life, communication, and the others, which could initially impact their academic performance, but it brings about what you call a savant capability.
Okay.
The savant capability means that they have a unique intellectual skill which just defies categorization.
Okay.
An example, I met one young boy, an 8-year-old boy, who had autism. Now, look at something. So you could ask him, Pamela, what is 15 times 71 plus 271 times 14.1 divided by 7? You mentioned the answer.
My producer, can you do it?
So I'm like, no, wait a minute. So I just reach out for a calculator,
And
you punch everything, and the answer is right.
Correct.
And you wonder how an 8-year-old could do this complex mathematics. So that's how the autism works. So some of them grow, they become wonderful engineers, some remarkable lawyers, excellent doctors, and the others. That's one good thing about autism.
Okay, so now let's come to some of the symptoms of these disorders. What are some of the things you look out for before you say, okay, this person may be presenting with a disorder?
Okay, when it comes to the symptoms, they are highly varied.
Okay.
But we tend to use broad categorizations.
Okay.
Irrespective of whatever symptoms the person himself or herself or the family or a caregiver bringing the person in for a consult, they will come and bring all kinds of issues. I can't sleep, I'm moody, I'm restless, I can't pay attention, anything makes me angry, irritable, and all that. Now we tend to see, is it causing distress to the person? Is it causing a dysfunction to the person? Is it impeding the person's social function? Is it impeding his or her occupational functioning?
Okay.
Is it affecting his cognitive capabilities so that they can't reason well, they can't concentrate well, their thought processes are quite slow? These are the issues we look at before we do the diagnosis.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have a caller on the line. Hello, your name and where you're calling from, please.
Good morning. My name is Sifa.
Okay. Hello, Sifas.
And I'm calling from Accra.
Okay. Please, your question.
I'm asking that I'm impressed with your contribution as a host. You give an insight into the topic as if you possess some socialization in clinical psychology. And a thumbs up to you.
Thank you.
Now, to my question. I wanted to know the correlation between unemployment and mental health, especially within this environment where you have young folks with high level of expectation, they have aspirations, yet after school, most of them are on the street unemployed, hustling to make ends meet. And so you see a gap between their aspirations and their career status. How does that undermine their mental health, and how can one mitigate the effects of their current status vis-a-vis their mental health. Thank you.
Thank you, too. Thank you so much for your question. So, yes, Doc, a question has been asked. How does unemployment undermine the mental health of our youth?
That's great. In fact, I will speak to research publications in this regard. So there's been a series of research works and publications in peer-reviewed journals that educate us that there is a very high correlation between unemployment and mental health. So in countries where there is high levels of unemployment, mental health is very high. In countries where employment levels are very good, you see low levels of mental health. The only difference we are seeing is that in these advanced countries where sometimes there are high or very good employment rates, issues like substance abuse and others come in to be able to bring about some sort of putting us at par. But yes, you are very right. So you will see in some countries there are demonstrations and it becomes so chaotic and the others. See, police will try to find them, but the person who is demonstrating, the clinical conditions are making them so high that they can't control their own moral affairs.
So is it because of, so you see in the question, he also mentioned that they had aspirations and then right after school, they're unemployed, so they're not able to meet those self-actualization goals. So what is the correlation now?
Yes, in fact, with the aspirations, that is even a very serious issue. You see, when someone has very high aspirations and something just acts to just, comes up to just impede it dramatically, the person goes through series of brain changes and neurochemicals that become similar to a person who is very high on cocaine. Let me explain. You see, a lady could be in love with a guy and there could be a breakup and the girl ends up at Pantine. You wonder, why is it that just a breakup and she's ending up at Pantine? She's behaving so psychotic. You see, she had very high aspirations. I love this guy. He's so sweet. And all of a sudden, all these things happen. It's the same about the high aspirations when it comes to the youth. The youth have a lot of career aspirations, big things they want to do to help themselves, their family, their community, and even the nation. But something happens or it doesn't go well with our institutions, it just comes down. So when it happens a particular way, it's as if a person who is so high on cocaine, they can just do anything at all. So it really impacts mental health very severely.
So can you also say that the inability to meet your most basic needs can also affect your mental health?
Seriously. So here we fall on a man called Abraham Harold Maslow. He spoke about the hierarchy of needs. And the number one is our basic needs. Food, shelter, water, these basic things, if you deny someone of it, they become very aggressive. That's why these unions, some civil unions and the others are always on the government and their bosses, because once you do something that really threatens their survival, their basic needs for food, it affects the person's mental health and anything at all could happen.
Thank you. So yes, we have a number of questions. So let's get into that. Then we take a quick break. And then when we come back, we will talk about substance abuse and everything related. So it says here, it is commonly hypothesized that individuals with severe, mild, or even subclinical mental disorders may use drugs as a form of self-medication. We will come to that after the break, so let's hold on to that question. I'll read it again. Then we have, Yaira, can you ask Doc, can recreational drugs and alcohol cause mental health problems? So I think our conversation about substance abuse was inclined to substance abuse as an effect of mental health disorders, but it seems that this one is asking the opposite. If these recreational drugs and alcohol can actually cause disorders. So please.
Yes. In fact, she's very right. So when it comes to substance abuse and mental health, the effect is biphasic. So mental health issues or disorders could make a person go into substance abuse. And substance abuse could also bring about its own mental health situation. And when the both come together, it really worsens the symptoms of mental health
so
disorders.
This question also is just similar to the asking if drugs and alcohol can affect your mental health. And from your previous answer, yes, it can. So we have one more here. Hey, a number of questions. Okay. So, hello, Ms. Yaira. Please, can Doc highlight on mental health on our sexuality and how prevalent or common is it with the genders? So, yes, sexuality and mental health.
Oh, okay. When it comes to mental health and sexuality, there's been diverse research publications. Okay. There are some mental health issues where you realize that males are highly at risk. There are others, females are highly at risk. There are others, is just like 50-50.
Okay.
Let's take depression, for example. Research shows that we have more women diagnosed with depression than males. But it doesn't mean that more women get depressed and only few men get depressed. The reason being that, you see, men usually have this sort of, a little bit of some ego. They don't want to seek health care unless it gets critical. So in the hospital, if they tell me that, oh, a lady is dying and a gentleman is dying, trust me, I might rush the gentleman first, because if a gentleman comes and says I'm dying,
it means that's critical. Okay. But then also, I think I've seen online that the rates of suicide is higher among men. Even, let's touch a little bit on suicide and suicide ideations. I think I read a little bit on those things. There's some passive, something, and then suicide ideations, passive and active. I think there were about 5 groups. I don't remember all of it. Okay. But can you touch on that a little before we go for our break?
So to lend this suicide to the question she asked, when it comes to suicide, I think there is about, the ratio is 7:3. I think if there are 10 cases of suicide, the males will be about 7 or 8, and the females will be about 2 or 3.
Okay.
Which means more men die by suicide. But now the interesting finding we are having is that women attempt suicide,
but they don't get to go through it.
Yes.
Okay.
So women attempt suicide, but men succeed.
Oh wow. Okay.
But the reason being that the men often use very lethal means when it comes to suicide. It's as if when a man says,
it means he has reached it.
Yeah, he's reached the final level.
Yeah, okay. So, yes, let's go for a quick break. Right after the break, we will start talking about substance abuse. And I think that is where the questions are most. So we will answer every question you have. The phone lines are open. Send your comments to our live stream on Facebook and YouTube. And of course, our WhatsApp number. And you can also call the number displayed on your screen. So we'll be right back with substance abuse. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the KOKO Digest Morning Show. If you're just tuning in, this is the KOKO Digest Morning Show, the main discussion. And we have here in the studios with us Dr. Abishai Anlima. He's a clinical neuropsychologist, and he's teaching us about mental health and substance abuse. Don't forget to send in your questions and your comments on our live stream on Facebook and YouTube. And of course, you can send them also to our WhatsApp number. And feel free to call our phone line to ask your question if that's what you prefer. So yes, Doc, we were talking about mental health and sexuality. So, I mean, I know that people get raped, defiled, and things like that, and then it tends to become a mental health issue. I know a little bit about hypersexuality, and then even just hyposexuality where they don't even have any interest. They tend to become even asexual. So can you expound on that for us a little?
Okay. In fact, we've met a number of these cases. And this one, let me get a bit personal about it.
Okay.
Whenever people come into our consulting rooms, we do an intake assessment.
Okay.
So we get a few of their demographics. And we do ask, have you been violated sexually? If you get 10 ladies today who walk into the office, I get about 5 or 6 of them who have been violated, usually by close family members and family friends. And this often has a serious issue on their mental health. A number of them grow to become so hypersexual because they get exposed to sex at a very early age. So some people say that, Doc, I became aware of my body at a very early age, around 10 years of age. And to satisfy it, I went into pornography and they brought about all kinds of issues. Some even grew and they enter into lesbianism. So some of the people who are into these homosexuality issues, some it's not because they wanted to go and do it, but this early exposure and abuse pushed them into it. And others also tend to hate sex so much. Even some even go through pain during sex, dyspareunia and the others. Vaginismus, yes. During sex.
Again, about the effects of some of these traumatic events, would you also link it to what they term as kinks, where now somebody wants to be degraded, insulted during their sexual activities, or choked, or their hair being pulled, those kinds of, or even having someone excrete, bodily waste upon them? Are they also mental disorders, or they are just preferences people have?
Okay, I don't get it so well, please.
So, sometimes like this hypersexuality thing, where the person is so interested in fulfilling all the pleasures of the flesh. So they develop certain kinks now. There are some people who want to even be beaten up, dominated, or those kinds of terminologies that tend to come up in the sexual field. Are they results of or related to these mental health disorders?
In fact, as you said, we have people who engage in all of these parasexual fantasies. Some would like to beat someone, bite the person to get their pleasure. Some would like to have a pain inflicted on them. Others use other forms of bizarre. Some will go into ladies' dormitories, go and steal panties and braziers, add it in their rooms and use it for all of that. Some could be due to mental health issues they are going through or distress. And they find that as a way to get some form of solace to help themselves.
Because I think I'd seen something about consensual non-consent, and sometimes it stems from being raped or being defiled at a younger age. So now they tend to rather like it when they are forced, but it's an agreement where they are forced by their partner to engage and things like that. So I was wondering if those things are also mental disorders, or because they are effects of something that had happened to them. And like you said, it's a way to find solace. So how do we make the distinction that, this person is just interested in these things, and then this person is suffering from something?
Good. In fact, when we look at mental disorders, oftentimes we are looking at big issues like affecting the occupational functioning, social functioning. But now in our DSM, we have what we call adjustment disorder, which means that some of these events that happen in your past, they've affected your lifestyle in a way. So some people will say, as for me, I'm aggressive, as for me, I like sex this way or that way. But the bottom line is, that's not whom they really have to grow to be. But they have not been able to adjust effectively to the issues they face in their life. And that's what brings about the issue.
So yes, let's quickly touch on, so we have another one. The person who asked about the genders and the sexuality is also asking, how does your mental health affect your potency?
Your potency. That's a very interesting and true question. Yes, there is a strong relationship between mental health and potency. And it's also a bit by physics. In the first area, a number of mental health issues affect a person's potency. If you are going through depression, you tend to lose interest in sex. Someone will be going through anxiety disorder, they tend to lose their potency. But someone would also be going through anxiety disorder and they will engage in more sex because they find sex as a way to escape their problems mentally. Some will also go through depression and they find random sex and giving out sex freely as a way to also cope with their problems. But while some of them, it tends to affect their potency negatively, others they become so hypersexual in that particular area.
So you've only skewed it to men. What about in women?
Women too. In fact, this is the same for both men and women. A number of women who have been abused by their own husbands. Ghanaians don't accept generally that a man can rape his wife. But if you look at our Domestic Violence Act, I think that's 2007, right? Yes. it makes it clear that a man who is married to his wife can rape her. It must be consensual. The women claim that the man, they are going through all kinds of issues, and the man is demanding for sex. She's not in the mood for it at all. Not because she is denying you, but her mental health state at that particular point is at its lowest end. And the man will beat them and violate them and enforce himself on them. So all these issues do happen.
Okay, so can that affect the woman's fertility too?
Yes, that could affect her fertility. We mentioned about this vaginismus, dyspareunia. All these things could be able to happen.
Okay.
Sometimes it even affects their sexual desire.
Okay.
To the point, even when the mental health issue has been treated, their desires are gone and you have to do a separate therapy for that.
Okay, so I have another question. Why are people asking so many sex questions? We are coming to substance abuse. So this one says, Yara, please ask Doc if too much sex can affect your mental health.
Okay, when it comes to the question of too much sex, it must be a bit defined operationally.
Okay.
I was having these lectures with my students, and we were looking at the benefits of sex. For men, a number of research, I think the American Medical Association published a study that if a man is able to ejaculate about, I think it's about 27 times within a month, it lowers their chances of prostate cancer very significantly. Yes. So sex itself could boost a person's mental health. Yes. But some people engage in too much sex and it becomes a bit unprotected, it becomes a bit too illicit, and it is a bit counterproductive because they are using it as an escape route to dodge a particular problem. Okay. Then it doesn't become the right coping mechanism to use.
So then it could also fall into even a part of the addiction where...
Addiction issues.
Yes, as a result of the mental health. So we are coming to that, yes. Now let's start with our substance abuse so that I can also ask the questions our viewers are asking. What is substance abuse?
Okay, so substance abuse is a condition whereby a person has become hooked up to a particular substance or multiple substances, such that even when they want to stop at will, they are unable to stop. So there is this sort of obsessions and compulsive urge to always seek the medication, and it's affecting their mental health.
Okay, so what is the difference between substance abuse, misuse, substance use, dependence, and addiction?
Addiction, okay. So when we say substance abuse, that is when, now we tend to make it a bit clearer by saying substance use disorder. That's the substance abuse. Okay. So this case, a person has used a particular psychoactive medication for such prolonged time to the extent that they are unable to stop using it, and it's affecting their mental health so seriously. The substance use is when anyone uses any substance or medication or drug with psychoactive effects. It means it affects your mental health and your emotional health, but they may not be categorized as having substance use disorder, which means they can choose to use it today, occasionally, yes, for pleasure.
Okay, so what is the substance misuse?
So this one becomes, so substance misuse is when a person is using something, it could be a prescription medication, like this Valium, Xanax, and the others, but they are misusing it, they increase the dosage. Someone who go to hospital, a doctor prescribes a tramadol, so it's prescribed, but they just increase the dosage, 100 milligrams of tramadol every day, so it becomes a substance misuse.
Okay. So what about substance dependence?
So now the dependence comes in when you get to a particular state where without the medication or the drug, you can't live. You can't go without it.
So what's the difference between the substance abuse where the person cannot even stop at will and the dependence?
Good. So substance abuse or substance use disorder and dependence, they are like a man and his wife. They go hand in hand. So the substance abuse comes in when the substance dependence comes, because when you are so dependent on it, you can't do anything without it.
So,
but one clarification, the little difference is that in the case of substance use disorder, you've depended so much on the drug to the point that now it's even affecting your social functioning and your occupational functioning. But substance dependence, they could be using it like a person who is hooked up to cigarettes, maybe tobacco. or maybe marijuana and the others. Some people could be using it, but they go to work, they are very social, so they are dependent, but they are not having a substance use disorder.
Okay. Yes. So the last one is addiction.
Okay.
What is the difference with that one too?
Okay. So addiction becomes a state whereby a person is having this sort of compulsive and obsessive urge to be glued to one particular thing. It could be addiction to a particular substance, addiction to somebody, addiction to something. In Ghana, for example, now a serious issue we are now recording in the hospitals is addiction to pornography, and addiction to gambling. So in this case, it doesn't involve drugs.
Alcohol?
Oh yes, so the alcohol comes in when it comes to the substance use addiction. So these are the issues we are seeing. Some people are also addicted to television, some are addicted to all kinds of things.
So, yes. I hear that sugar can also be categorized as a substance that could be abused.
Abused, yes.
So how true is that?
With that one, currently there's an ongoing research. So the research involving that is looking at sugar or sugary foods, caffeine. They're looking at these energy drinks. People are heavily abusing energy drinks without realizing the effect of it. And some of these teas that people are marketing as, they are medicinal and the others, but they might not actually be.
So, yes. What are some of the substances that are usually abused?
When it comes to substances, the number one is alcohol. For alcohol,
say it again.
the number one is alcohol. With alcohol, research indicates that about 2.7 billion people worldwide, abuse alcohol. But those we categorize as alcohol use disorder. That means they abuse to the point that they can't function anymore in society. They are about 38 million worldwide. So 2.7 billion people, they abuse alcohol at one point or the other in their lives. It could be a funeral, it could be a party, an engagement, and then they end up and that sort of thing. Yes. Then aside alcohol, I think tobacco is the next. Tobacco use, the world statistics is 1.1 billion use, and they are so hooked up to it, and every day they are on cigarettes. Then the next is cannabis. Cannabis, is weed, marijuana. Yes, it's also so highly abused. Then we have these inhalers like nitrate oxide. Alent is used by dentists and then to inflate balloons. And it has these psychoactive properties. So you go to a park or to a beach and they are inflating the balloons and so they are just playing, they are just abusing it. So that's also become an issue. Then we have this opioid use. People are on these tramadols and these painkillers and the others, and they abuse them excessively, the cocaines and the others. And I think we also have some few others that we are also considering.
So what's the difference between heroin and cocaine?
I think per the medical classification, they have some differences. The cocaine seems to be higher than the heroin in potency. But they all have psychoactive substances because they can make you hallucinate and then have delusions.
So, but then some of these opioid substances or compounds are used for our medication.
Very well.
So, like, I think there's even a TV show, Clock TV, has been putting up. It's a medical show. I think I was talking to you about it. Where this doctor is so hooked on his pain medication because he's in constant pain. And he's able to function. He's able to still, diagnose people, cure people of their ailments and everything. But his social life is where the problem is. So how do we make the distinction that, this substance abuse has become a disorder? In fact, this is a serious issue, even among medical experts. Some doctors and nurses are so hooked up to tramadol, petadine, and the effects could be very enormous. One thing is, whenever it comes to treatment, we are very careful when we are giving out these medications. That's why when you look at the essential medicine lists by the Ghana Health Service, some of these medications must be prescribed before you can purchase from any pharmacy at all. Now, people use them and we say they are on it, they are using it, so it becomes a substance use. And this order comes in when they use it to the point that now it's affecting their memory, their cognition,
their recall, how they see things, judgment, and how they function with others, and then at work as well.
Okay. So let's get into the questions. Yes. Hey, Buffo. So yes, this one says, why is there comorbidity between substance use disorders and mental illnesses?
Good. So when you say comorbidity, it means that the occurrence of multiple disorders.
Okay.
So a person could be going through bipolar, they could be going through PTSD, they could even have schizophrenia and all kinds of things. Yeah, so one thing is, well, the question the person is asking, I think the person is quite an expert. So usually, some people abuse drugs or substances because of the presence of a mental health issue they are battling.
Okay.
So most people with depression, anxiety, so let me go for cannabis or antidepressant or alcohol, and then they now tend to abuse it. And by abusing it, it also brings another mental disorder, and they end up getting maybe a PTSD, or they progress from depression to bipolar, or later even to schizophrenia. So all these things do happen.
Thank you, Rose Entertainment, for your question. Okay, here's another one. Is it commonly hypothesized that individuals with severe, mild, or even subclinical mental disorders may use drugs as a form of self-medication?
That is very right, absolutely. And on this premise, I want to even make something a bit profound. You see, when it comes to substance use disorders, during my formative years, I saw anyone on marijuana, people abusing alcohol. I've seen fathers who would abuse alcohol and they'll carry them in a wheelbarrow, and some will lie in the gutter. It's just so dehumanizing. I saw them to be so bad, so they're like misfits and the others. Until I entered into this profession to realize that those who abuse substances, they are not bad at all, at least most of them. They abuse these drugs because they are using it as an escape route to escape some problems or distress or mental health issues they are going through. So they are doing so as a form of self-medication. Let's take alcohol, for example. When you are going through some form of anxiety and depression, you get some alcohol. It tends to douse your
inhibitions are lowered.
Your inhibitions are lowered. And it seems you've forgotten about all your problems. Then after a while, some few hours, now the problems now come back again and say, hey, this issue started. No, let me go back to it.
Okay. So Rose Entertainment again. Hey. Okay, thank you. Please ask Doc if patients with schizophrenia have higher rates of alcohol, tobacco, and drug use disorders than the general population.
Okay, this is something that has become highly debatable. Some researchers are of the view that persons with schizophrenia tend to go into drugs or these substances. But now we are realizing that the people going to these substances, most of them don't even have these schizophrenia at all. So the research work in that area is inconclusive. We can't tell for sure whether schizophrenia makes them go into this substance abuse or the substance abuse is actually causing it more of schizophrenia.
Yeah, I think we didn't talk about schizophrenia. We didn't explain it. So let's explain it briefly so that, because people throw that word around too a lot, just like the bipolar.
Yes.
So if you can explain a little first.
So schizophrenia is a psychotic disorder. It's called psychotic because it's a mental disorder that affects how your brain works. Side that when it comes to your reasoning, how you process information, it is clouded. So it tends to affect your thinking, your emotions, and your behavior. So among the mental disorders, schizophrenia is one of the high-ranking members. When you get there,
what does it present as? Because we know the bipolar, you mentioned that it could be depression or manic episodes. So what about the schizophrenia?
For schizophrenia, what we commonly observe, some go through hallucination. It's very, very common. The hallucination, we have 5 types of the hallucination. We have those who go to the visual hallucination. So they see things that are not there. A man comes to my office and while I'm interviewing him, then he knows, I say, hey, Virgin Mary has appeared over here. And he knows, I said, doctor, let's all kneel down, but you can't see any Virgin Mary in the office. So he's seeing things that are not there. Some go through auditory. They hear things that are not there. And they'll say a voice is telling me to kill myself, or a voice is telling me that I won't progress in life, or a voice is telling me to kill my children. And the person puts poison in food, serves 6 children, they all eat to their deaths, all because of schizophrenia. Some also go through other forms of this hallucination. We have what you call olfactory and gustatory. So some they smell things that are not there, others also taste things that are not there. Then we have the delusions. They see themselves as so big, so grandiose. So people with schizophrenia, when they see you, it's like you are below them. They see themselves as if they are the president. So you see it, they are walking, so majestic. Then we have the behavior that could become a disorder too, where some could be behaving oddly.
Okay, so Joseph here says paracetamol, it is being abused, and that would, I'll link that to one of my questions about how medication being used to help treat people with substance abuse disorders can rather become what they start abusing. So let me just ask it and then we go with it. So yes, there are definitely medications you use to help people out with their substance abuse. So how do you navigate when these medications or they start to depend on these medications as a substitute to the previous substance they were abusing?
It's true. When it comes to this question you were asking, it's like we treat a problem to create a problem. So to solve a problem, we prescribe some of these painkillers or pain relievers. And some of these pain relievers, some have to be stronger than para. That's where the tramadols and the petadines and all of that come in. Some people are going through all kinds of problems whereby we have to prescribe benzodiazepams, like Valium, Xanax, diazepam, and the others, so they could sleep. Now, we are doing this for a reason and for a period of time. I guess to a point, the problem seems to have been resolved, but the patient now depends on these medications. And they are so smart that they use several means to outwit us, and they can go to the pharmacies and get these medications. And then when they get it, they increase the dosage. So someone can be taking about 10 milligrams of Xanax. If you know what Xanax does, just 500 micrograms alone can do all kinds of things. Then some would increase it to become 1 milligram. Then some go to 10, some even go to 20, 30. Like, it's so bad.
Wow. Okay. So we have another question here. Hi, good morning. My name is Zina. And my question is, given that self-medicating is a practice even seen among parents, what are the primary factors contributing to substance abuse, drug abuse, and self-medication? How can these behaviors lead to mental abuse? And what steps can individuals, families, and communities take to effectively address and prevent these issues? So this is a very loaded question. So the first one is, what are the primary factors contributing to the substance abuse, drug abuse, and self-medication, especially even in parents?
Yeah, in fact, pertaining to the question she asked, I want to refer to a research study. It was published by the Ghana Non-Communicable Disease Alliance, 2022. So they took interest in this in our country, Ghana, and they realized that about 30% of those abusing substances, they were influenced by peers or friends. So most of our secondary school boys and girls become prey to this. So they go and then their friends push them. But a caveat here, you might think they are bad, but some of the people who go and then they accept these drugs, they could be dealing with self-esteem issues. Some are dealing with loneliness. Some go to secondary school and like they are fighting to fit in. They want to fit in. And to fit in, you have to accept these. Other causes were from, I think that's the second cause was from parents or family. So parents were contributing to about 18% of people abusing substances in Ghana. So either your father is abusing it, your mother, an uncle, or someone in your...
But you see, for this one, I have a little experience with that because my mother is a very curious person. So when we go to the hospital, let's say I'm ill, right? I'm anemic or something, she would be asking questions, you know, oh, which kind of blood tonic is better at this? What? Because, you know, the blood tonics come differently. Some contain this or that. So she asked those questions so that the next time I'm anemic and she feels like, oh, we've already used this drug before. So let's just, because it's the same thing that's happening. So sometimes it's not exactly like they're trying to abuse the medication, but they've gotten some prior information and then they think, oh, this can help us. So that's one aspect of the self-medication that we need to look at as well, that these are parents. They don't have time to every day be taking their children to hospital. So they just take note of the medications, like even the malaria drugs. Some of them would even make you worse before they make you better. Some make you better quickly. So you take your preference, and then the next time you look like you have malaria, they go and... So how about that part as well?
That part as well. In fact, it falls part of the 18% being the major cause of this. It's not because the parents are trying to do something fishy or something bad, but they feel, oh, with this knowledge I have had, I can be able to follow the same trend. But that could be a different scenario. And you see, when it comes to medicine, the choice of medications we give also depends on what might have caused it or the triggers. So someone could get a problem, you will give this medication, but the same issue, you give a different medication for a different person. Even for the same person, a person could get one problem, they come to the hospital, we give this medication, but the next time a different one comes in. Yes.
So also, the next question here is, how can these behaviors lead to mental abuse? Lead to mental abuse. Yes. How can these behaviors lead to mental abuse?
As in which behaviors, please?
The self-medication and things like that.
Good. So this self-medication, some of them could lead to addiction. And one thing is, when doctors are prescribing medication, they consider a whole number of factors before they give out the medication. But if you are doing your own self-medication, you wouldn't know the factors the doctors consider before they issue out a drug. So it's not good to say, because I use this and it helped me, I'm going to give it to someone else. And all this could bring about addiction problems, reliance, dependence, and all that.
So then, the loaded question, the last one is, what steps can individuals, families, and communities take to effectively address and prevent these issues?
In fact, that is a very wonderful one. You see, number one, awareness is very key. Awareness creation. We all must learn about this. If somebody is going through substance abuse, there is something that is making them abuse the drugs. The reason people are addicted or they abuse medications is because addiction always serves a need for the person. The person is going through some crisis. So as someone said, that they are doing so as a form of self-medication. So some are addicted to pornography as a form of self-medication to solve a problem they are going through, or as we call it, a coping mechanism. But that becomes a non-healthy coping mechanism for them. So to be able to help, we all get the awareness, we create the awareness among ourselves. Look, parents and families, they can do substance abuse education. Just as every parent is supposed to organize the children one day, discuss sex with them so they know about sex, how to stay away from abuse. If someone is touching you, you can run away from it and the others. You also discuss about substance abuse as well with your children, both girls and boys, before they grow. That would be like a good start. The media, you play a very key role. Yes, because the media, I think you contribute about 16% of people who are engaging in this substance abuse. So that you can also play a key role there.
So the questions are coming in. They are not allowing me to ask my questions. Good morning. I'm Nick Norris from Ajen Kotoku. I want to ask Doc why sometimes when something happens, I get this feeling like it has happened before, and sometimes I feel like someone is talking to me.
So when you feel like someone is talking to you,
or I think he tends to get deja vus too.
Very well. Sometimes it is inadequate to be able to make a diagnosis. He shouldn't be think that he's having a mental disorder. But people who develop paranoid disorder often go through symptoms like this, and it becomes severe. So to add this to the first question that was asked about what we can do, screening, mental health screening is very important. In the US, every year, I think their health insurance policy pays, I think, for 1 or 2 health sessions, mental health sessions, free for everybody. You can go, you get your screening, bring out these issues, we run a formal assessment on you. Then we can tell what might be causing this or what is a prelude to something else. And the earlier the better. Once we get it early, we can always prevent these things. So you can seek some help.
Yes, he should. So, Nick Norris, please start seeing a psychologist and then keep track of a psychologist or a psychiatrist, right?
Yes, please.
And keep track of your symptoms so that you can get a proper diagnosis. So yes, we have to wrap up this segment. So I'm sure I will tell my producer we have to have you back for a part 2 because there's a whole lot more that we need to create awareness about. So as we wrap up, what are your closing remarks to the general public?
So let's all be involved in learning about these issues. Mental health is very, very profound. If about 41% of Ghanaians are going through mental health distress, some forms of it, then it's serious. So when I'm crossing the road, I'm careful because some driver driving might be having its own distress and you could just be a victim. So let's all learn about it, do the awareness creation. On the National Health Insurance, mental health is not covered. And mental health, research done shows that mental health is taking away 7% of our GDP as a country. And 7% of our GDP is phenomenal, very, very, very phenomenal. So the government can choose to consider adding mental health, at least the common ones, so that people can freely come and seek help. Because the earlier we treat things, the better. If you are going through any form of crisis, don't think you are crazy or you are mad. No, that term is a bit derogatory. Feel free to walk into any mental health facility to seek for some screening and to get some better results.
Thank you so much. It has been very, very informative and educative. So please remember, Dr. Abishai is the head of Friends of Mental Health, and that's an NGO that seeks for funds to support mental health in Ghana. So if the hospital is so expensive, come and see the NGO. Maybe they'll find something to help you out. And I will definitely tell my producer so that we have you back here. This has been very, very informative. And I'm sure you were also informed and educated this morning. Thank you so much, my cherished viewers, for joining us today. Thank you to our management. Thank you to our sponsors. And thank you, of course, to our guests. Thank you to the production team and everybody that made this morning show a success. We hope to see you again bright and early on Thursday morning. Do have a blessed day.
Clog TV. Beyond the policy.